mention 500 BC to 500 AD megalithic jars or plain of jars in Sinkwang province. An inventory of jars and jar sites, conservation and restoration of damaged jars.
Imagine a land scattered with hundreds of enormous stone jars. Each jar stands like a silent guardian, keeping the secrets of a long-forgotten past. However, these prehistoric megalithic jars built by giants are found in Indonesia, Laos, and India. What kind of mysterious civilization could have made these enormous stone jars? And what strange purposes did they serve? Join us as we unravel the mystery of these gigantic stone jars spread across different lands. The Bata Valley. In central Sulawesi, Indonesia, inside Lor Lindu National Park, lies Bata Valley, also known as Napu Valley, home to a fascinating collection of ancient stone monuments called large stones. These large stones, locally known as watu, meaning stone, in the Badaic languages, or arca, meaning statue in Indonesian, number in the hundreds, and their exact age remains unknown. Scholars have not yet discovered the reason behind their creation or the identities of their builders. These peculiar statues are believed to have been there since at least the 14th century. Found over 100 years ago in 1908, the large stones of Bata Valley continue to interest researchers who have struggled to pinpoint their origin and age. Estimates vary widely, with some suggesting they could date back as far as 5,000 years, while others propose a more recent timeline of around 1,000 years ago. Meanwhile, some researchers believe that the large stones found in Bata Valley may be connected to an ancient culture that also built similar structures in Laos, Cambodia, and parts of Indonesia about 2,000 years ago. According to ancient origins, the creators of the megalithic statues in Bata Valley remain unidentified. While there are theories suggesting they were crafted by a culture known for constructing similar structures across Southeast Asia, the megaliths in Bata Valley stand out as particularly distinctive and unique. According to A.C. Kruit, the founder of POSO, historical records show that before the Dutch arrived in Lor in 1908, local people used to build stone tombs. Some areas still made kalamba, stone jars used in burials. These objects are from different times, with some made just a few hundred years ago, known as young megaliths. The Bata Valley is situated in a gently rolling landscape surrounded by hills, creating a beautiful setting where clouds often hug the hilltops. This unique geography often leads to a scene where rain might soak one part of the valley, while sunlight shines through the clouds onto another, creating a beautiful mix of light and shadow across the land. In the middle of Bata Valley flows the Lariang River, which meets with the Malay River, making it stronger. This joining once made the Lariang perfect for exciting river rafting trips. As the river flows through the valley, its current becomes calmer at the valley's middle, where the land evens out. The reason behind the ancient big stones remains a mystery. Local beliefs suggest they were used for honoring ancestors, yet their exact purpose remains unclear. Residents also tell interesting stories about the origin of these huge stones. One tale tells the story of Tokalaya, a big stone cursed to its current form after committing a serious crime of rape. There's a tale about a huge stone called Tadulako. According to the community, Tadulako used to protect their village, but one day he stole rice and was cursed to transform into a stone. There are other stories linking such large stones with rituals involving human sacrifices. Some locals think these stones were placed to keep away evil spirits, while others believe they possess magical abilities and can vanish or relocate on their own. In the distant Bata Valley of Lor Lindu National Park, ancient stone statues like Palindo, Torampana, Tarai Ro, and Loga carry names given by locals. Each statue has its own story from folklore. For example, Palindo was once thought to have stood tall and proud. In Lor Lindu National Park, the Lor tribe keeps their old customs. Among green rice fields, these statues stand guard next to traditional Lor houses. Made from bamboo and topped with roofs woven from sugar palm fiber, these simple dwellings also serve as cozy accommodations for park visitors, offering a peek into the area's diverse cultural heritage. In Sipi village, the older folks believe that the Palindo statue, known as the entertainer in their local language, represents their ancestors, especially those from the Tasalog tribe. According to legend, during the rule of the king of Luwuk, he ordered 1,800 statues from Sepe to Palapo to show his power over Bada. Originally meant to face south, a mistake occurred when the Bada people placed them facing west instead. When the king insisted on turning them around, the statues tragically fell on his soldiers, leading to the deaths of about 200 troops. In ancient times, the Bada people would make offerings to these statues before important tasks, like opening new farmland. The old statues found in Bada Valley are unique depictions of human faces, made only. They merge eyebrows and noses into one feature and do not show the mouth at all. These statues are easily recognizable by their clear differences between males and females. For example, the Palindo and Maturu statues show male body parts, while the Langkabulawa statue shows female body parts. Female statues also often have a fringe covering the forehead. These ancient stone carvings have a simple style. The figures usually have big heads and bodies that are not curvy and are often shown without legs. The faces typically have round eyes and use a single line for eyebrows, cheeks, and the chin. While most statues are alone, some are grouped across the valley. These old stones are spread throughout Bada Valley, decorated with carvings showing people, animals, kalamba, and many other things. Among the various old sculptures found, some show grown-up humans standing about 1.5 meters tall and with a width of about 50 centimeters. One notable statue, known as the Oba statue, is 70 centimeters tall and has a playful face without clear signs of whether it's male or female. Local interpretations sometimes compare it to a figure resembling a monkey, though others suggest it might represent a child. Additionally, there are objects called kalamba, which look like big jars with lids, measuring between 1.5 meters to 2 meters wide. These objects are thought to come from the same cultural origins as the human statues. Evidence supporting this connection includes finding small kalamba and stone tools similar to mortars, often near the human sculptures. Plain of Jars. The Plain of Jars in Laos is an interesting ancient site with thousands of large stone jars spread across valleys and hills on the Shangquang Plateau. These jars are grouped in clusters, ranging from a few to several hundred, and have intrigued researchers for many years. Located in the northern part of the Annamese Cordillera, the main mountain range of Indochina, this plateau holds important historical and cultural value. First extensively studied by French researcher Madeleine Kalani in 1930, it was found that these jars were used in burial ceremonies. Later excavations by Lao and Japanese archaeologists have supported this idea, uncovering human bones, burial items, and pottery near the jars. Scientific dating methods using optically stimulated luminescence show that the jars were placed here between 1240 and 660 BC. Further investigation using detrital zircon geochronology at Site 1 revealed that the jars were originally brought from a quarry located about 8 kilometers away. The Plain of Jars is one of the most important ancient sites in Southeast Asia, providing valuable insights into ancient burial customs and the cultural history of the region. In Shangquang Province, over 90 places with groups of stone jars have been discovered. These jars range in number from 1 to 400 at each site. They come in different sizes, typically standing between 1 meter and 3 meters tall and having varying diameters. All of these jars are carved from solid rock and have a cylindrical shape, with their bottoms wider than their tops. Most of these stone jars are plain, except for a unique one found at Site 1. This particular jar features a bas-relief carving of a human figure resembling a frogman on its outer surface. Interestingly, connections have been made between this frogman and ancient rock paintings found at Huashan in Guangxi, China. These Chinese paintings, which date back to between 500 BC and 200 AD, depict large frontal human figures with raised arms and bent knees. Most of the jars found have rims around their openings, indicating they were likely designed to have lids, although very few stone lids have been found. This suggests that most lids were made from materials that decay over time. Some stone lids with carvings of animals like monkeys, tigers, and frogs have been discovered at sites such as Bonfacao, Site 52. In addition to lids, stone discs have also been uncovered. Unlike lids, these discs have at least one flat side and were used as markers for graves, placed on the ground to cover or mark burial pits. Although less common than jars, these grave markers are often found near them. Similarly, the stone discs are unshaped, but were intentionally positioned to mark graves. North of Shangkowang, there's a large network of these intentionally placed, mostly unshaped stones marking elaborate burial pits and chambers, known as the standing stones of Huafen. These have been dated back to the Bronze Age. The jars are found grouped on the lower slopes and ridges of hills that surround a central plateau and valleys above it. There are also places where stones are cut, usually near where the jars are found. 5 types of rocks have been identified: sandstone, granite, conglomerate, limestone, and breccia. Most of the jars are made from sandstone. It is believed that the people who made the plain of jars used iron tools to make the jars, although there is no clear proof of this. There are differences in the shapes of jars in different regions. In most cases, these differences seem to be because of the choice of rock and how it is used, but sometimes differences in how the jars are made, like where the openings are placed, seem to be only in some places. In a cave at Site 1, there is a natural limestone formation. It has an entrance facing northwest and 2 man-made openings at the top. These openings are thought to have been used as chimneys for a cremation site. Madeleine Kalani, a French geologist and amateur archaeologist, dug inside this cave in the early 1930s. Her discoveries provided proof supporting the idea of its use as a cremation site. Kalani extensively studied 12 different places across the plain of jars, later publishing her findings in 2 detailed books in 1935. Kalani concluded that the plain of jars was used as a burial ground in the Iron Age. Inside the large stone jars, she found colored glass beads and pieces of burnt teeth and bones, sometimes from multiple people, all preserved in dark organic soil. Near these jars, Kalani found human bones, pieces of pottery, iron and bronze items, glass and stone beads, ceramic weights, and charcoal remains. The bones and teeth found inside the jars showed clear signs of having been cremated, while the bones from other burials nearby were not burnt and seemed to have been moved after burial. In November 1994, Professor Eiji Nida from Kagoshima University and Lao archaeologist Thongsa Sayavongkamdi began exploring Site 1 after a long hiatus in archaeological research. They carefully mapped and surveyed the area. Nida proposed that the burial pits around the stone jars were made around the same time as the jars themselves, as they were cut into the ground where the jars were originally placed. According to Nida, these jars were likely built as symbolic monuments to honor the nearby burials. He estimated that the plain of jars dates back to around the late 2nd or early 1st millennium BC. Based on his analysis of burial urns and other artifacts found in the graves, between 1994 and 1996, Sayavongkamdi, with support from the Australian National University, conducted further surveys and excavations. Together with Peter Bellwood, they interpreted the stone jars as primarily used for the central burial of an important person, possibly surrounded by secondary burials of their family members. UNESCO archaeologist Julie Vandenberg supervised bomb clearance operations in 2004 to 2005 and again in 2007, which mistakenly provided valuable archaeological insights. Like Nida, Vandenberg concluded that the stone jars and the nearby burials were created during the same period in history. Kalani observed differences in how cremation was done, sometimes inside jars and sometimes outside. This has been hard to understand fully. Interestingly, most of the cremated remains found were from young people. When the jars were found during bomb clearing, they were not opened, so we couldn't learn more. Vandenberg proposed that these stone jars might have been used for distilling bodies long ago, and the ashes we found inside them might be a newer part of the plain of jars history. Smaller jars may have been used as people started to put less of the body inside them. In 2001, R. Engelhardt and P. Rogers suggested that the containers found in traditional Southeast Asian royal funeral customs served as purifying vessels. These customs are still practiced today by Thai, Cambodian, and Laotian royalty. At the beginning of the funeral rites, the deceased's body is placed inside a large jar. It's believed that during this time, the soul of the deceased gradually moves from the earthly world to the spiritual world. Eventually, the body is burned, and the ashes are buried in a second burial ceremony. These royal burials usually happen in high noticeable areas close to rivers, away from homes. Among the Black Thai people, who have been in the area since at least the 11th century, there's a difference in burial customs based on social status. The upper classes are cremated, as it's thought to release their spirits to heaven. In contrast, common people are buried, with the belief that their spirits stay on earth. Kalani linked the places where the jars are found to ancient trade paths, especially those used for trading salt. She believed that the people of the Plain of Jars valued salt, which attracted traders to the Chiangkuang Plateau. This area is rich in metallic minerals, mostly because of granite that has moved into the area and the hot water-related activities. Laos has two main deposits of iron ore, both in Chiangkuang. The many jar sites in Chiangkuang might have something to do with trading and digging for metals. History shows that Chiangkuang, which is found at the top of the Annamite Range, makes it easy to go from the north and east to the south and west. In the geography of Chiangkuang, the jar sites might show a network of cultures living near each other. The places where the jars are put show long pathways across the land that go between the Mekong and the Gulf of Tonkin. The places where the jars are found may have different forms, stuff, and how many jars there are at each place, but they all share common things like how they put dead people away, how high up they are, and how they can see what's around them. The most explored and visited jar site is near the town of Phonsavan, known as Site 1. Currently, 7 jar sites have been cleared of dangerous bombs and are open for tourists. These include Sites 1, 2, and 3. Site 16 close to the old capital Chiangkuang, Site 23 near a large hot spring in Muang Kham, Site 25 in the lesser-known Pho Kut district, and Site 52, the largest known jar site with 392 jars near a traditional Hmong village accessible only by foot. According to Lao legends, the area was once inhabited by giants ruled by King Kun Chung. He allegedly waged a long and successful battle against an adversary and celebrated by creating jars to brew and store large quantities of Lao Hai, a type of rice beer or rice wine. Another local tale suggests that the jars were crafted from natural materials such as clay, sand, sugar, and animal products mixed with stone. This has led locals to believe that the cave at Site 1 was a kiln where the jars were fired, rather than being carved from stone. Between May 1964 and the summer of 1969, the Plain of Jars was heavily bombed by the United States Air Force in their efforts against North Vietnamese and Pathet Lao communist forces during the Secret War. This campaign involved dropping 262 million cluster bombs designed to harm people. Shockingly, an estimated 80 million of these bombs did not explode upon impact and remain a danger to the local population. The widespread presence of these unexploded bombs, especially cluster munitions, severely limits movement across the area. The aftermath of the bombing is clear in the form of damaged or moved ancient stone jars and many bomb craters. Therefore, exploring the Plain of Jars safely requires staying on marked and verified paths. Efforts to lessen this danger have been made by the Mines Advisory Group, a non-governmental organization, NGO, working with support from UNESCO and funding from the Government of New Zealand, NZAID. Their first clearance operation from July 2004 to July 2005 focused on the 3 most frequently visited sites. A later phase in 2007, also funded by NZAID, expanded bomb clearance efforts to 4 more jar sites, making them safe for visitors. Acknowledging its historical and cultural importance, the Plain of Jars was officially recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site on July 6, 2019. Giant Jars of Assam. In India, archaeologists have found new sites that add to a long mystery. These discoveries cover both visible areas and remote wilderness. In 4 places that were not known before, researchers have found 65 large stone pots coming out of the ground. These old objects vary in shape. Some are tall and round, others are round and fat, and some look like 2 cones stacked on top of each other. Many of them are partly buried or almost completely covered by dirt. The origin and purpose of these pots remain a mystery. No one knows who made them or what they were used for. Despite this mystery, it's clear that they were used more widely than people thought before. This recent discovery increases the total number of known ancient stone jar sites in India to 11, giving new information about old customs and societies in the area. Similar ancient sites have been discovered in Laos and Indonesia. These sites date back from the 2nd millennium BCE to the 13th century CE. In Laos, human remains near the jars suggest they were used for rituals related to death. In Assam, megalithic jar sites were first officially documented in 1929 by British civil servants Philip Mills and John Henry Hutton, who identified 6 sites. Another site was only found during an expedition in 2016 to 2017, part of efforts to relocate and document the sites described by Mills and Hutton. Led by archaeologist Tylok from the Northeastern Hill University in India, renewed excavations in 2020 revealed previously unknown sites. Initially, the team aimed to survey 3 major sites that had not been fully explored. They set up grids to investigate the surrounding dense forests. According to archaeologist Nicole Skopal from the Australian National University, this effort led to the discovery of new jar sites. 4 new sites were found, including Harakilo village, where 10 jars were discovered, 6 on the outskirts, and 4 relocated within the village itself. In the uplands of the Mid-Mekong area, archaeologists found interesting groups of old stone jars. At a hilltop in Mid-Holing, they dug up 12 badly damaged jars. Nearby, on another slope in the same region, 8 jars were discovered. Some moved a short distance, likely due to road building. Further south, in Lower Chai Kam, 35 jars were nestled in a field surrounded by dense forest. These findings increased the number of known sites to 7, totaling 797 jars spread over 300 square kilometers. These jars were intentionally placed on hilltops, slopes, and hills with views of the flatlands. Interestingly, none of the sites reveal where the sandstone used to carve these jars came from. Despite thorough research, archaeologists remain unsure about who made these large jars or where they came from. The mystery of their purpose and creators continues to interest researchers. In Assam, there are hints suggesting that the ancient jars found there, similar to those in Laos, might have been used for burial rituals. Historians Mills and Hutton noted that one of these jars contained fragments of burnt bones. British anthropologist Ursula Graham Bauer, who lived among the Zimi Naga people in the 1930s, reported that the Zimi believed these jars were crafted by the lost Simi people for funeral rites. Stories from the Naga people, who now inhabit northeast India, tell of discovering Assam jars filled with ashes, beads, and other artifacts. There are likely many more jar sites in the dense forests of Assam, as the current research has covered only a small area. Researchers emphasize the importance of safeguarding Assam's heritage, especially as human settlements expand. Urgent surveys are needed across Assam, Meghalaya, and Manipur to find more sites before they are damaged by agriculture or deforestation. Interestingly, it appears that no contemporary ethnic groups in India are directly linked to these jars. The longer it takes to locate and protect these sites, the greater the risk that they will be lost forever. Discovering more sites could also help archaeologists unravel not just the purpose of these jars, but also shed light on the mysterious people who created them. Now it's time for today's subscriber pick. Long ago, in a land of lush forests and towering mountains, lived a prehistoric megalithic jar built by a clan of gentle giants. They were kind-hearted beings, standing twice as tall as the tallest human. One day, their wise leader, Orin, had a vision of giant jars made from stone, standing in the fields to protect their land and store their food. With great strength and skill, the giants carved massive stones from the mountain. They shaped these stones into giant jars, each big enough to hold a house. The jars were so large and heavy that it took many giants working together to move them. When the jars were finally placed in the fields, they seemed magical. They could hold grain for years, keep water cool, and even provide shelter during storms. The giants' hard work paid off, and their land flourished. Over time, the giants vanished, but their stone jars remained. People who discovered these jars marveled at their size and beauty, weaving tales of the gentle giants who built them long ago. The land remembered the giants, and their legacy lived on through the mysterious, towering jars. What do you think happened to the gentle giants who built these jars? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Ancient megalithic mysteries around the world. Archaeologists call Ometepe the island of circles and spirals because of its ancient rock carvings, or petroglyphs. But what adds to the mystery of this pre-Columbian civilization are the carved stone statues found there. Ometepe is a small island in Lake Nicaragua, filled with large stone statues scattered all over. People have lived on this island since around 1500 BC, which is about 3,500 years ago. One of the most important archaeological sites on Ometepe is Taguizapa, where 4 big stone idols have been discovered. However, many more are believed to be buried underground, just waiting to be found. In another part of the world, in the town of El Tiemblo, Spain, there are ancient sculptures called the Bulls of Guisando. These statues date back to the 3rd century BC, making them around 2,300 years old. The statues, carved from hard granite, are about 2.2 meters long and 1.3 meters high. They were created by the Vetones, a pre-Roman Celtic people of the Iberian Peninsula. Thousands of years ago, ancient people carved massive stone statues for reasons we still don't fully understand. These giant sculptures, called megaliths, likely marked territories back then. One of the best places to see these fascinating works is the San Agustin Archaeological Park in Colombia. It's one of the most important archaeological sites in South America, famous for housing over 500 of these gigantic stone figures, some towering several meters high. The statues in San Agustin are incredibly varied. They depict humans, gods, various animals, and even strange, unknown creatures. Made from volcanic rock, these statues were created by a mysterious civilization that lived in the area thousands of years ago. Experts think the statues might be around 1,900 years old, but no one knows the exact age. Another intriguing site with ancient stone structures is on the island of Menorca in Spain. Here you can find the taulas, unique and mysterious megalithic constructions. Built during the Paleolithic period, around 1000 BC, these structures are roughly 3,000 years old. The taulas are made from large slabs of local limestone and are typically constructed in a T-shape, similar to the famous pillars at Göbekli Tepe. Both San Agustin and Menorca offer a glimpse into the ancient past, showcasing the incredible craftsmanship and mysteries of civilizations long gone. These sites are not just historical treasures, but also windows into the lives and beliefs of our distant ancestors. Creating these massive stone structures must have been a huge challenge and required a lot of teamwork. Some of the stones weighed as much as 10 to 20 tons. On the island of Rota in the northern Mariana Islands, there's a quarry called the Rota Latte Stone Quarry. This place is special because it's where they cut out huge latte stones, a unique feature of the ancient Chamorro culture. The Chamorro people used these stones as pillars for their houses and communal buildings. Some of these stones date back to around 500 AD, making them about 1,500 years old. In Sicily, there's an ancient stone quarry called Cave di Cusa. It provided stone for building the temples at Selinunte, a major Greek colony in Sicily. The quarrying started in the 6th century BC, but work suddenly stopped in 409 BC when the Carthaginians invaded. In Japan, there are mysterious stone sculptures called saru ishi, or monkey stones. Unlike typical Japanese stone sculptures, these feature monkeys, which are usually linked to protection against evil spirits. The exact purpose of these sculptures is unclear, but they are thought to have spiritual significance. Their age is unknown. In Guatemala, at Monte Alto, giant stone heads date back to around 1,800 BC. These pre-Columbian sculptures can be up to 2 meters tall and weigh several tons. Archaeologists believe they had religious or ceremonial purposes, possibly representing gods, ancestors, or important leaders. Costa Rica has over 300 almost perfectly round stone spheres, some as big as 2 meters in diameter and weighing over 16 tons. These spheres were likely made around 600 AD by the indigenous people of the time. Their exact purpose is unknown, but some think they might have been used for astronomical purposes. The House of Taga, on the island of Tinian, also in the northern Mariana Islands, features massive latte stone pillars, some as tall as 4.6 meters and weighing over 35 tons. This site is the largest megalithic structure found in the region. In Senegal and Gambia, there are the stone circles of Senegambia, thought to date back to between the 3rd century BC and the 16th century AD. These circles often include burial mounds and play a significant role in local traditions. The stones can be as tall as 2.5 meters and weigh several tons. In India, the Ariyanur umbrellas are large, mushroom-shaped stone monuments found only in Kerala. Believed to be burial or memorial stones, they date back to around 1000 BC, making them over 25 years old. Ethiopia's Tia Stellae Field, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, features 36 mysterious stone pillars with carvings. These stelae are thought to be grave markers from between the 10th and 15th centuries AD, during the post-Aksumite period. In Iran, the colossal statue of Shapur is an impressive 6.7-meter tall sculpture carved from a stalagmite. This statue of Shapur I, the second king of the Sasanian Empire, dates back to his reign from 240 to 270 AD, making it over 1,700 years old. Lastly, the Plovtsian Babas are anthropomorphic stone statues found in the Eurasian steppes, primarily in Ukraine and southern Russia. Dating back to the medieval period around the 6th to 12th centuries AD, these statues often show figures standing with hands clasped on their stomachs, sometimes holding objects or babies. They are believed to be made by the Cumans, a nomadic Turkic people. Many of these statues are now in museums, but some remain where they were originally placed. Which of these astonishing prehistoric megalithic jars built by giants did you find the most intriguing? Let us know your answer in the comments section.